Welcome to today's Partner Academy Live on-demand webcast, Part 3 in the Visual Studio 2010 series on winning with Visual Studio 2010 in the test market. I'd like to turn the floor over to your presenter, Michael Deroche, Vice President and Director of Tempo Testing Labs. Michael, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. This is session number 3 of the discussion regarding Visual Studio 2010 and how we can win in the test marketplace. A brief review. The first session we discussed the marketplace in general, and we learned that the testing marketplace is a rapidly expanding and vibrant market, virtually untouched by the ability to provide a tool for the generalist tester as well as for the overall application lifecycle management. And so Microsoft has with 2010 created a disruptive play in the marketplace, and we discussed that in session number 1. We also discussed why software testing is important. It goes without saying that software runs our lives, and having software that is high quality and thoroughly tested is essential to ensure a quality organization. And the place of software testing tools in that scenario is becoming vitally important and will only become more important. And so having tools to address that segment of the marketplace is of crucial value. In the second session, we switched gears and got into more of a technical discussion about software testing in general. It'll be very important as we drive sales with Visual Studio 2010 to understand the terminology and the mindset of the test manager, of the QA professionals. And so the second session was designed to give a basic understanding of all basic software testing concepts, as well as some very specific areas of automation and load and performance testing. So those concepts will be important as we drive sales. In today's session, we're going to look primarily at the competitive marketplace and how it is that we're going to win in this marketplace. It's been estimated that the testing market has been very underserved, and even though it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, it's been primarily having testing tools for the developer doing unit tests and not for the generalist tester. So the move with Visual Studio 2010 is to introduce for the first time to the core generalist tester tools that will help them provide software quality and to really have a place at the table. And so that's what the focus for this session is going to be all about. We will review a number of the competitors and the competitive tools, and then we'll show where Visual Studio 2010, how it matches up, and what are some of the best ways to approach your clients and customers regarding this tool. So let's begin. Visual Studio 2010, winning with Visual Studio in the marketplace. Why Microsoft and why Visual Studio for software testing? This session will review how Microsoft stacks up to other vendors and help you understand the benefits of our latest Visual Studio edition. In this session, you will learn when and how to start the conversation with your customers to drive sales, including tips that will assist you to target upgrade opportunities for your customers. Included in this presentation are sales scenarios and ways to introduce the Visual Studio 2010 solution for software testing. Visual Studio 2010, here are the 4 primary concepts that we'll discuss in this session. Visual Studio 2010, the test tool for all testers, all about software testing tools, how competitors' test tools stack up to Visual Studio 2010, and then sales scenarios for spotting opportunities and closing sales. Let's first review again the world for Visual Studio. You can see there's 4 primary versions and flavors of Visual Studio, all based on a Team Foundation server offering. And so this graphic will become very and vitally important to you to understand the various components for the Visual Studio offering. Primarily, we'll be referencing the Test Professional version and the capabilities within that piece of software. Now, it's important to understand that the Microsoft offering is primarily addressed to 70% of the market, known as the generalist tester. And the Visual Studio 2010 really for the first time allows you to have a conversation with a fairly underserved audience. Those would be the QA managers, the test directors, the folks that are involved with application lifecycle management in terms of the ASQ market, the quality assurance market. So the application software quality is a driver in most businesses, and so Visual Studio 2010 now can be positioned for this specific audience. It has an entirely new tester-focused user interface. This is of crucial understanding. Up to this point, it was developer-centric, meaning that the developers, the coders, the application management folks, they had a user interface that was designed for them, for the database people. Now, with the introduction of Test Professional, there's an entirely new focused UI that'll give the tester and the data and the assets that the tester community needs to see will be visible for them, and they'll have their own console for test management, for test execution, for tracking of all their testing assets. In addition, there's the lab management piece. One of the pain points for the test professional is that there is a significant amount of time and energy involved in setting up environments in order to do the testing, to make sure that there's a clean environment that can readily be reproduced, the errors that they're seeing and the developers have seen. And so that ability to create a lab that you can recreate in an environment is a crucial component, and will become even more so as we move to a cloud-based testing, and most web-based applications require this thorough testing of a variety of environments with various deployments. So the provisioning of this lab is of crucial value to the test community, and with Visual Studio 2010, we now have a virtual test lab management piece. Now, we discussed this specifically in session number 2, but it's a vital component to understanding how to drive sales for the test manager and the test community. Improved capabilities and performance for load and web testing. This can be directed to the developer environment. Often it is the more specialist tester that have been, and sometimes developers that have been the folks that have been doing the performance and the load and the web testing. But the test community themselves, now with the more advanced tools that do not require advanced scripting skills, often will be involved with the web test performance. And so to understand that there's been an enhancement and ability to create high-powered, very focused, very complex, and cost-effective web performance testing is a terrific aspect of this software. And when we get into the competitor analysis, we'll look at a little bit of the price point comparisons between Visual Studio 2010 and the performance and testing capabilities compared to the competitors and the other tools available in the marketplace. And finally, a new automation testing capabilities through Visual Studio, integrated testing environment, development environment. This tool we've used in the previous session, but I wanted to bring it again to our attention. This is of crucial importance to understand that the most underserved marketplace in the testing community is in the generalist tester. And yet, 70% of all the testing occurs in the generalist tester area. Manual testing is performed at least 50% of the time. Of the total effort taken to test an application, manual testing is at least 50% of that. And that's conducted in large part by generalist testers that have had no formal code training or technical training, and they've been relegated to highly repetitive tasks, very time-consuming. And these are professional individuals that would love to have a tool that could make their life easier to really allow them to do the deeper dive testing, but so often their time has been robbed. With the introduction of Visual Studio 2010, as particularly the fast-forward testing features, a terrific time savings can be realized in the manual testing. And so the scripting that had been taking a long time to create has now been minimized, and click and playback to fast forward through to a specific area that needs to be tested can be achieved through Visual Studio 2010. 30% of the testing is done in the scripting area, which has primarily been the automation test tool market, and that's when you speak about testing tools, this is primarily what people think about is an automated testing. But the disruptive element that is being brought to bear with Visual 2010 is that now tools are not just, this tool is not just an automation tool, but it's a tool for the entire test team, including automation, but not just exclusive of automation. And the majority of the test tools that are in the marketplace, and many of them that we'll look at in this session, are primarily for the automation specialist. And if a company is already using an automated testing tool, we'll have discussion about the value propositions related to moving them to the Microsoft solution. Some of these discussions will be based on the fact that the approach of Visual Studio 2010 is for the entire application lifecycle management. And Microsoft is really uniquely positioned in this area. The primary competitor in the ALM marketplace is IBM, with HP being a distant third. But in the automated testing tool, HP is the dominant player to this point in time. So one of the key ways to win in selling into this marketplace is understand where each of these two primary competitors play and what the tool offerings are. And Microsoft has a unique position with Visual Studio 2010 because it really spreads out the game. Where it was just a discussion about an automated testing tool, now we have tools for the generalist testers that can do not just defect tracking, test case management, test plan management, but also include a discussion around the tool being available for the developer, for the database manager, for the project manager, integrated across the entire application lifecycle. And so that is going to be a very crucial point of how to compete in this marketplace. All right, so let's take a look at some of the tools, right, currently in the marketplace today. In general, we can split them into two categories, and we'll be looking primarily at the commercial tool set because that's in large part where the competition is going to be and where most of the activity is going to be taking place. But in the open source tool, it's important to at least have a familiarity with them, and when someone will speak to using an open source tool, you need to have a general understanding of what these tools are, what their intents are. And the largest player in the open source tool market is a tool basically used for web application development, and that would be Selenium. Its primary competition is What-In and Water, which is what you see below that. And those are open source tools. Water is used particularly for web app testing with Ruby applications. And those are automated testing tools. They do not have a large function point test, but they have been fairly well proven in the marketplace, and they're adopted widely in the open source market. You can see in the commercial tools that there's a variety of players. I've listed 4 or 5 of them here, and as mentioned, the dominant by far player is HP, and we'll have a significant discussion about what their tools are. In the commercial tool world and the open source tools as well, there's a number of categories of tools. There's the bundled tools where you have a multifunction set of capabilities. You have automation-only tools. You have manual testing-only tools that'll test a specific area of functionality. Defect tracking tools. There's a number of testing tools defect tracking tools in the marketplace. Some from open source, some to commercial, that simply manage the test defects and the tracking of test cases. The GUI interface, the web load and performance tools. Some of those tools have now been deployed as a web-based application and on a subscription model. So those will be competitors for Visual Studio 2010. Code coverage and unit test tools as well. And all of those tools, all the above, are included in the Microsoft solution. So Microsoft solution, and it's part of